One of the few remaining veterans from the D-Day landings, David Teacher celebrates his 100th birthday.
Good morning. Naga, Charlie, back to you two.
Chris, thanks so much. We'll speak later.
Time now is 9:15. Next year will mark the 80th anniversary of one of the key dates of World War II. It's the D-Day landings in 1944, and a series of events will take place to honour veterans.
One of them, a man called David Teacher, has just celebrated his 100th birthday at a care home in Greater Manchester, and Jane McCubbin went to meet him.
Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
There you go.
David Teacher, one of the very last D-Day veterans left in the UK, turns 100. And perhaps he is one of the most modest World War II veterans. David, take me back. D-Day. You were there.
At first we were a little bit apprehensive because we didn't know what to expect. But once we got involved in what we had to do, it became more or less simple, a doddle. And we waved through it without too much trouble. Mainly because we had a wonderful Air Force, and anything that came within any miles of the beach was shot down.
You say it was a doddle, but there were bombs falling at your feet.
Oh, it was worse than bombs, they were machine guns. I mean, there were but I say men, there were boys falling at our feet. I don't know, we seemed to overcome it very well, very easily.
The D-Day landings were far from a doddle, laying the very foundations for an Allied victory.
David's D-Day was driving a Bedford QL, a 3.5-ton truck, off a landing craft into very deep water. He didn't know whether he was going to even get through the water, never mind get to the beach, and he didn't know what was going to happen on the beach. They were bombed every night. They were shelled every day. A German aircraft flew so low he could see the pilot's face, and a bomb dropped at their feet, but didn't explode.
David was lucky to live. His best friend, not so. He was shot dead on the day of the landings. But in front of one of the Bedford vans which took David on to Juno Beach, he was presented with a card from the King.
On behalf of His Majesty the King, it gives me great pleasure to present you with your birthday card to celebrate your 100th birthday.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Every year has been something different and something to appreciate it. It's been a fantastic life.
100, not out!
Much better than civilian life.
Absolutely extraordinary. And if you have the time to listen to his stories of the things he experienced during World War II, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And it's so important we hear these stories because
there aren't many of the World War II veterans left anymore. That's our challenge.
But there are some events he can't bear to talk about. One, driving through a concentration camp months before the end of the war. Could you tell me about that?
No.
You'd rather not?
I'd rather not. Too horrible.
At his birthday party were his children and grandchildren, the only person missing, his wife Nancy. And you were married for 76 years.
Yeah.
To the love of your life.
Yeah.
How did you meet Nancy?
As a dance. We were walking up the steps and I looked over and I stopped and I said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry." And she said, "You must be joking." I said, "No, that is the girl I'm going to marry."
And you did?
And eventually I did. I miss her a great deal.
He was a famous trumpet from the Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play.
It sounds like you've led a remarkable life.
Absolutely. Enjoyed every minute. Every minute of my life has been out of this world. But I've not wasted a lot of my time. Done a few useful things.
A few useful things? The D-Day landings, Battle of the Bulge. One of the few remaining veterans who played an integral part in defeating the Nazis. Been an honour talking to you.
Pleasure.
Happy birthday, David. Jane McCubbin, BBC News.
What was it he said about living? He just said, live moments, enjoy life.
The line was, because was it... Good morning, by the way, Philippa.
This is Philippa Rawlinson,
properly.
Director of Remembrance at the Royal British Legion.
Yeah, the line was, he said, I've done a few useful things. which is, you know,
very understated. It's what we hear so often from veterans.
It's a wonderful thing.
Do you know, the thing is as well, what is so important is that these stories continue to be told. And like in the piece, in Jane's report there, very few veterans are still remaining to pass on, you know, the storytelling, the experiences. And this is what you do, isn't it?
Absolutely. At the Royal British Legion and at the National Memorial Arboretum, every time we have a commemorative event, we focus on the stories of those that were there. Sometimes we're privileged enough to have people like David with us. Other times it's letters that they're left behind or their family's memories. And I think it really is important because as we remember the service and sacrifice of those that took part in D-Day and other battles, you know, it unites us and brings us together.
And also they're the best history lessons. You're
Absolutely.
not reading it in a book and seeing a series of dates. You are able to relate to people who were young boys, not men, boys who were seeing war and experiencing war, who were missing their families, who were scared, who were witnessing things that they vowed we would never have to see again.
Absolutely. It really is powerful when you hear it in their words. And sometimes their letters home as well, you know, that live on beyond them are really powerful. And, you know, and then when younger family members, you know, retell them, you get that connection. And I think if we can get people to think about their connections to people like David and other veterans of D-Day, the Battle of Normandy, and indeed all the other battles that took place towards the end of the Second World War, it's really important because we are all connected and we wouldn't have the lives we have today without their sacrifices. So we think it's really important.
I suppose, Philip, the uncomfortable realities, of course, is that those first-hand experiences told, as we just have, are fewer and fewer. That's just a reality. Time is passing. So the challenge for you to make sure those stories are known still or heard still changes, and it will change over time next year and then as commemorations go on in the future.
Absolutely. So it's great to be able to record and have those interviews and to have their testimony and to share perhaps some of the surprising stories and to look for new stories to share. You know, so at the Royal British Legion, we're thinking about what the legacies of those that took part in D-Day and the Battle of Normandy are, and bringing it right back to right up to date with pictures of veterans and the families that they've gone on to create, the mark that they've had on our society. So looking at different ways while we've still got the veterans with us, you know, and making it relevant to people today so we connect with them.
I know one of the things you're encouraging people to do is to find veterans in their communities. I think you're going to have to explain this because, one, if you're an older person and you have a stranger come up to you and say, tell me your stories, yes, it could be a bit weird, couldn't it? But also, I think, you know, out of respect, you don't necessarily know how to approach someone, one, by saying, look, you're older, you might have experience. You know, again, you know, it's awkward, but also they might not want to talk about it. David there was very clear about what he wouldn't talk about to Jane, which is absolutely fine.
I think many of the older generation know their mind very clearly, and that's something, you know, that is great. I think what we're saying is talk to your family. We've just had families and friends together over the Christmas period. I was with my husband's family in Liverpool, just along the road, and their grandfather took part in. Was on a landing craft in D-Day, you know, and so actually just exploring your family stories, exploring perhaps your community heritage and how your community was involved, you know, 40 years ago, 80 years ago, as we came towards the end of the Second World War. So you don't have to go into those personal stories, but actually just finding out more about how you and your community are connected and thinking about how you might want to commemorate, because we would like to see commemorations right across the country. In fact, our Royal British Legion branches will be hosting events, working with veterans that they know or thinking about their community connections or maybe their family connections for veterans that are no longer with us. So we will have activity right across the country and also our events at the National Memorial Arboretum and in Normandy.
And many people, obviously, and we see the pictures behind here, we're talking about D-Day landings. But whenever you talk about war, people obviously make connections with other wars. And that too is relevant, isn't it? Because right now, for example, we are seeing so much in terms of conflict. It brings it right up to date. It's not as if this sits just in one place in the past.
Sadly, it doesn't. And I think that's what all these young men we can see behind us and those that we'll be speaking to over the coming months would have hoped for. And you know, at the RBL, we very much recognise that they still serve. Recent events will be have made a difference to those who are currently serving and their families. The Christmases that they might have been planning have changed because of their service. And I think that's something we're really keen to remind people of, is that our Armed Forces family the servicemen and women and their families and friends are still serving us in many different ways. And sadly, I think that's the reality, and we should be thankful that they are ready to fight for us and for the freedoms and democracy that we enjoy in this country.
The 75th anniversary, 2019, yeah, I mean, it was remarkable, and, you know, we were honoured to have so many veterans then, and as Charlie's alluded to, you know, time is passing. How will the 80th, almost, I suppose you don't aim to top it, but you aim to have for it to be as, if not more, impactful?
I think it has been an extraordinary 5 years since 2019. We've all come through so much, and I think that ability to come together and refocus and realise how precious the few surviving, remaining links we have, I think are really, really important. And we move on and we make things different based on the veterans and their needs and welfare. So at the Royal British Legion, we are working with 30 veterans and talking to them about how they may come to Normandy with us, if it's right for them next year to be at our events at the Bayeux Cemetery and with the Ministry of Defence of the British Normandy Memorial, but only if it's right for them. If not, how else can we commemorate their service? And also working with other groups who will be bringing veterans to Normandy and making sure that they're well looked after, because they are very, very precious.
Good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year
to you. Looking ahead to tomorrow. That's Philippa Rawlinson, who's Director, Remembrance, Royal British Legion.
Thank you.
Thank you.